See what happens. StreamYard. So I think we don't share the StreamYard link. It's got to be YouTube, right?
I told people to go to the YouTube, so.
Yeah. What am I doing here? Channel dashboard.
All right. Yeah, I just got a notification on YouTube saying that bitB got live. Bigstealer.
Cool, man.
Quite surreal. Quite surreal.
Do you have the link that you can give me just so I can share it around, get the people involved?
Hold on.
Can you, if you can like click it on YouTube or whatever?
I'm just going to watch myself. Yeah, on a small delay. How do I send it on Skype? I guess. I hope that's it.
Oh, riggedy roo. Yeah, man. Looks good.
It's quite funny because I was playing a pot with Daryl. I think it was in 500 Zoom, and it was 3-bet pot, and I had a mix spot where I could bet off check. And in the chat, I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll check if you get me on the pod." And this was months ago, and he just burst out laughing. Obviously, I had no intention to get me on this pod, but I checked anyway, which I think was quite a big tell that I didn't have a very good hand.
Man. Like we haven't done a podcast in ages. We did one with Ben like in April or something like that. I like them, man. Yeah, I like doing them. They're fun. So yeah.
I've liked all the ones you've done so far. To be fair.
Yeah. So yeah, my mom was just around there, like checking in on how for those just joining. I'm like super ill. I'm like feeling fever. I slept for 15 hours last night, Bertie. 15 hours.
I would kill for a sleep like that.
That's more than a guy should sleep. I think we can agree. I would kill for a sleep like that.
Last week, I think I slept for 25 hours all the way through the week.
What? Why are you doing that to yourself, bro?
I struggle. I mean, I can function off not much sleep. I've got one of these little, Aura ring things, which kind of tell you how you're sleeping and blah, blah, blah. And I've just seen that I couldn't deal with 6 hours sleep really quite easily.
Yeah.
But obviously 25 over a 7-day period is less than 6. But
yeah
it was
3.5 or something.
Yeah, it was, man.
Dude, we live different lives.
Oh, absolutely awful. Like all week long. I was going to play, I was toying with the idea of playing some Timbies on Sunday because obviously W-Coop.
Yeah.
Couldn't bring myself to sitting down. The idea of sitting down for 11 hours, maybe 12, sometimes 16 hours, and knowing after 4 I'd be over it. It would just be miserable. So that's one of the nice things about playing cash game. You can just leave after half an hour.
Yeah, man. I was playing a little bit of Timbies on Sundays when I was out in Mexico.
That's a time zone to play.
Yeah, dude, it was so nice. And like lockdown, I got myself on Bodog and stuff, and just popped off, man. The games were so good for a while. But yeah, like I don't know. I literally can't understand how people just play tournaments day in, day out and just.
Yeah, well, if we're going to get into it, I could start right now about that. Like I went for it for a bit. I was trying to play tournaments, and then the start of lockdown, I was playing quite a lot of them, but I knew it was unsustainable for me personally. I mean, there are some of the Swedes, and then you got Patrick, obviously, who was with bitB until recently, and Stan Vousden, obviously, and Tommy as well, who are all incredible grinders. They're just capable of just firing and firing and firing and just producing the same standard of play. But I know my limits, so I know that I can't do it. The only time I've done it for like a month straight and being consistently good was when I was actually not drinking for a month, and it was great. Like I felt really sweet and stuff, but I didn't really have a switch off, and I need that.
For sure.
So I don't know. Like some people just have a very it's healthy to them, but it's unhealthy to me. They have an obsessive personality, which allows them to consistently just sit down and focus and get into it. Whereas I need my switch offs, I need my reset activities, and
I grind in the UK. I want to say I grind 2-3 hours a day. Study maybe an hour, something like that, and then there's coaching and stuff, especially through the afternoons. But I don't think that's the dream, man. Like people Yeah, it's like you play poker for your freedom, right? To be able to do what you want whenever you want, and have enough money to do whatever you want as well. So at least that's for me.
It for me, because like when I first started, I was doing it out of a hobby and I enjoyed it, and then as things repeat and repeat and repeat, it becomes less of a hobby, and I started enjoying what poker gave me rather than the game itself. So yeah, a lot of people play for the glory. I mean, the best tournament players, I think, really enjoy the glory aspect of it.
Yeah, man.
And they really enjoy building that bankroll and stuff like that. Whereas I've placed an awful lot of value on what I can do with my time off, the flexibility, and seeing the world. And that's for me, and it's not the right way. It's just the right way for me. So I used to really think that people who didn't do what I did were idiots, but that was my own, ignorance.
Yeah.
Not everyone's wired the same way. I just happen to like that, and more for me for not making as much money as them.
Yeah, you played Singos originally, right? I think when I first met you,
it's very similar in terms of you can switch off you can be done with your session, and then 15 minutes later you can leave your computer. That's what kind of drew me to cash, because I liked that flexibility. I mean, when I first started playing cash, I was useless. I was just guessing ranges. But what I think I did quite well was I kind of picked up what people were doing reasonably quickly whilst just playing on the fly. So while I know for a fact that Pastacito tagged me as a fish for about 3 months because
you saw it on Rio or something, right?
Yeah. So like good players were obviously just killing me, but I was pool selecting pretty hard, and then I was just trying to pick up on tendencies. And then obviously I had like a reasonable resource in the fact that I knew you guys, and I was able to talk to you occasionally over thrice and whatnot, and just pick up little things that I could work off. Like I think that something that I'm not saying that, I kind of guess I am saying that, but like I picked up little things and I was able to extrapolate that pretty well, whereas that might not have gone as far with some other people. But that might be just because I've had experience in other formats, and I was able just to then make adjustments based on SPRs and whatnot, and hand values. So those kind of things I think are kind of unquantifiable. So I probably owe you guys some EV, but that was that was kind of a bit
for it in thrice action, man.
Jesus Christ, I'm such a winner.
That was a great game, man. I loved that. It got a bit out of control towards the end with the multipliers and stuff, but man,
I'm so glad I didn't get those big games. Jesus. Although I give it back in other bets, which was foolish. Who you
been betting with?
No, I mean the bet, the one where at the height of my China games, I was feeling a little bit slutty with some of my money, and I decided to bet Ben on his kippy ups. And
how many kippy ups did he have to do?
So there needs to be some background here. Yeah, there needs to be some background here. Ben, you play football with Ben. I played football with you. Yeah. So Ben must have been hustling me for about 3 years, because he made it look like he literally couldn't kick a ball when he was in goal. Like he is really uncoordinated when it comes to kicking a ball. He's decent goalie.
Yeah, he was a real good goalie. On his day, he was.
His distribution, well, when he played with us, was not the best.
Yeah, from his hands, to be fair.
Yeah. So I think I was having brunch with him. Stevie was there. I think Gazzy B might have been there.
Okay.
I think there was somebody else. Apologies to that other person. Maybe Ishka was there. And they were talking about, like, Ben was talking about how he could do 100 kickups when he was younger. And I was like, that's not true. Absolutely not true. He said, I bet you could do it. And I said, all right, you have from 8 o'clock tomorrow till 8 o'clock in the evening.
12 hours. That's a long keepy up session. I have heard this. And you scooped it, right? You did it in 20 minutes or something.
Got the video at 8:45 a.m. Yeah.
No.
And I bet too much. It's $1,500.
$1,500. Yeah.
I mean, those were the golden times of China, though. So it didn't.
Yeah.
Wasn't as bad as it.
You gotta love that as well, right? It's like you had an opinion. You put your money where your mouth was. He did the same, I respect it. This is how you got to get to the bottom of things.
I told one of my friends who's a banker who played with Ben. I told him about that. He's like, "Yeah, you're an absolute lock. You've got that." Because he had the same opinion of Ben's distribution.
Yeah.
He said Ben's a very good shot stopper, but he's not a good kicker of a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, seems like you were both wrong.
Yeah. Confirmed. Yeah. No, I don't do those bets anymore. But yeah. That was fun.
I have a blacklist on people I bet with. I don't bet with Stevie. I don't bet with Scotty Margerison. I don't bet. That's about all. They're the real main two. But yeah.
How do you know Scott?
Scott, when I first moved to Mexico, when I first went out to Mexico, I like crashed on his couch for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, him and Mikey Magee, like for 2 weeks or something till I got my own place. And yeah, we were super buds, man. We used to hang out all the time. He's a cool guy, man. I haven't seen him in a while.
I don't know him. I know a bunch of people who know him, and obviously, like, I've played heaps against him because he's
okay.
Yeah.
Must
be a really nice guy. He's mates with Jack O'Neill.
Yeah, definitely.
And we were supposed to meet up with him when Jack and I did a scoop together in Mexico, actually, BBC. And we were supposed to meet up with him one night, but Jack's phone died or something. So
no, Scotty was out in Mexico for a long time. I don't think he's there anymore. But I once bet Scotty like what day of the week it was or something like that. I was very, very drunk. Yeah, it wasn't that. It was something like.
That feels like a bet you might lose.
Oh yeah, I put $200 on it.
Okay.
Which was very stupid. But what else? Oh yeah, the classic one was the rice eating bet. Did you ever hear about this?
No, I'm excited.
Like, we were living in Thailand, like me, Stevie, and Frank, and a couple other guys, and we were like we had like a chef guy making dinner, and he put like this really little bowl of like sticky rice. This camera's trying to drip on me. Like beside our meal for every meal, and I was like, I could eat that in 1 minute. Stevie was like, no, you couldn't. So I think it was like 20 quid on it with Stevie and 20 quid on it with Frank or something like that. And I started shoveling the stuff into my mouth, and it was like so dry, like all the fluid in my mouth just completely dried up. And then about 20 seconds in, I started laughing, and I didn't swallow a single grain of rice in the 1 minute I have. So
that's the thing about rice; it's famously absorbent.
Well, yeah, he had no sauce or anything like that, man. That was stupid. Okay. It was also hilarious, though.
Yeah. Well, good for you, mate. Good for you for finding comedy in your financial degeneration.
Yeah, sure. I've spent 40 quid on worse things than that, man. For sure.
I've played a bit against Stevie quite recently, actually. Like, I've been on the party grind quite a lot.
The leaderboard thing, yeah. How is it?
I mean, it's reggy.
Yeah, I bet.
It's tricky. It's funny. I know one of your boys is doing both, but our fella Croc D, right? He's in there. Yeah. But yeah, he probably plays better than most. And I mean, actually, me and Ben were talking about this. We were saying how you guys have a very impressive roster for coaches. If you really think about it, it is pretty much the GOAT one. But it's weird. The party boys, they have it. There's only a couple there's 4 or 5 who I say play very well, and then there's a bunch who just seem to polarize with way too linear hands.
Okay.
And that means you have to play a slightly different style yourself. You can get to rivers with hands that aren't good bluff catchers against their rate. It's really strange. Me and Cam talk about it a lot because Cam's on it too. It's reggy, but it's weird. Like, I come back and play 500 Zoom just for a bit of see what's going on stars, and it's a much. I'm not saying it's easier because it obviously isn't, but like it seems like you can just play more normally, and it makes more sense than the stuff you see on party. Yeah.
No, I've never. I mean, I think I've played 100 hands of party fast fold in my whole life. I've been jumping in the full ring lobby on party, man. I like to play the freak show games, so yeah, I've been starting some 501k full ring on party. But
real names or screen names?
Screen names, yeah. But
do we ever find that one out?
Probably not right this second, but there's some boys like to start tables at 1k and stuff on party, and it's kind of Yeah, I'm trying to sort of work on my heads up a little bit now. So
Heads up, such a different beast.
I love it, man. It's just such good fun, isn't it? Like,
I'm not good at it. I don't find it fun when I get wrecked by people who are good at it. But yeah, I kind of do enjoy like the wide ranges and playing on the fly. But when people are good at it, they seem to just do everything you don't want them to do, and that's not fun to play against. And I get a headache when I feel like I'm guessing. So
yeah.
if I feel like I'm guessing against someone else who's guessing, it's fun. But if I'm playing against somebody who just knows what they're doing, it's miserable. So
yeah,
that's when I get out.
I remember I once played Educa poker for a while on 2K 888 heads up, and by the end I felt like any money I put in the pot was just somehow going to become his. It was awful.
Yeah, that's how I felt when. So actually, we can get onto a Linus story if you like.
Okay.
Before Linus became, number one.
The boy wonder.
Yeah, we final tabled this 2K in London.
Oh yeah, and he won it. He shipped it, right?
He did win it. But we were playing three-handed. Me, him, and I mean, if you could ask for a format to see Linus more, you couldn't have found that. But we were playing three-handed. Me, him, and a guy called, he was like something Turco Man. He was this Spanish guy who lives in Finland.
Okay.
That comes to play a 2K in London for some reason. And he was decent, but we were playing like 80 big blinds deep. It was a really deep three-handed. And Linus was just so comfortable. And I was I think this was 216 or something. This was this was a few years ago before he reached 5K, or he was just shot taking 5K.
Yeah.
And I was like this guy who was playing sit and goes, was very much a 25 BB or less player. Occasionally would play tournaments. And any SPR that was remotely higher, Linus just knew the answer. And I was just I felt like anything I did, he just would crush me.
Yeah.
But that said, he did like the most stratospheric punt, but got away with it on the FT. Like I opened under the gun and he 3-bet under the gun won. And I was second in chips and the big blind was the chip leader. And there were 3 guys under 15 big blinds and Linus had 65 big blinds or 70 big blinds. And I had like 90. So I opened under the gun, he 3-bet. I had ace jack offsuit. So like I just have the license to be very aggressive against Linus here. And I just happen to have a pretty good blockery hand.
Okay.
So like, I can 4-bet too much here and it's fine because he just literally shouldn't have a bluff. He just has to have a really, really good hand to put more money in. And he just shoves in 8s. And, I obviously fold. Like, I just like said, well, I guess you had a good hand. He was like, oh, it wasn't that good. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? But that was like, obviously, I'm never going to criticize Linus about anything now because he knows final table ICM really, really well now. But that was like ridiculous. Actually. And he ended up, I think he was down to like 3 big blinds with like 15 left and ended up just winning the thing. Yeah. But yeah, when it was final 3, he was just crushing us. It was so depressing.
I've got something to show you, Barry. Can you read that?
200 euros. What does it say on it? Linus Love.
It says 2D7 heart, Linus Love. We were in.
You're never spending that, are you?
No, 100%. No, that's my most treasured possession. Got that Linus. No, we were in Vienna and we went bowling. And it was like, who was it? It was me, Pisek, G, and I think one other person. Frank's no. So that was like our lane had 4 people in it, and then their lane was like Frank, Linus, Daryl, Lena.
Lena, as in Swedish Lena?
No, sorry, Daryl's girlfriend. And so we played a game, and then we bet who would get like the highest cumulative score, the 4 or the 5, because like we were a little better, but they obviously had an extra player.
So you handicapped basically.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was really close in the end. Pisek absolutely did work down the stretch.
Oh yeah.
He was a fantastic bowler that game. Yeah.
What's your bowling top score?
Like I'm delighted to get 150. I'm not good at bowling. No, I can kind of get it down there, but like it's a hard game, man. Bowling is hard. It's fun.
We went. My mum has a really good friend from university who lived out in Colorado, and we went down to this where they lived, and they had nothing in their town except a bowling alley. And we went down with her husband, her friend's husband, and we were like, I was just really proud that my top score was like 175, and he goes, that's decent, that's decent, and then it's like scores like 290, and I'm just like, fuck off.
Did he?
I mean, they had nothing to do. Like they ride horses and bowl. That was it. And like it was so depressing. He was just really, really angry at himself whenever he didn't strike, and I'm like,
jeez.
Yeah.
People are good at stuff, man.
They are good at stuff.
Yeah.
You've seen that sport where they like chuck sacks into a hole from like, I can't remember the name of it, but you find it in some bars and you have like a little hand sack and you chuck it into a hole from like 10 yards or something.
Okay.
And it's a really, really fun game. But it's very much a pub game when you're just wasted. And then I saw it on TV during lockdown while nothing was happening. They were just doing reruns of every sport. And then there's this guy just whanging it in every time. I was like, how?
Was it Stevie by any chance?
yeah. We were talking about Stevie last night, actually, about how sick he is at football.
At everything. We for my birthday we went up to Aviemore. I booked a house in Aviemore up in North Scotland for a week, and the poker boys were there for the first few days, and we went shooting, and like clay pigeon shooting, and I mean I can't remember what it was, but it was like he got more than double the score of anyone else. Never done it before. Just like sick hand-eye coordination.
No center of gravity.
I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes. And it's just, oh yeah, there was also the thing where he got invited to a charity croquet match, never played before, and just ships the whole thing because that's how he rolls.
Why not?
Yeah, that was nuts.
Shall we talk about poker?
Yeah, could do. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me, or am I?
Well, I was wondering from your sit and go days.
Okay.
Were you like SNE grinding and all that, or was it just?
Yeah. So not to start with, as I said before, it was like pretty much a hobby. At uni, I was. So what you're supposed to do if you're like any like half-witted professional is you're supposed to like play tables, and then as you lose a table, add another one. But what I did was I just load up 4 and wait till all 4 were done, and then I load up another 4, which is obviously incredibly inefficient. But then as I got through uni, that was to pay for uni basically, and I did that. And as I got through that, I realized I should probably take this a bit more seriously. I mean, even then, my hourly playing $25 sit and goes was like pretty decent. It was like probably $30, $40 an hour, which was pretty good for a student.
Yeah, when you're a student.
And I thought but obviously the games were like, there was so much room then compared to what there is now. So like you could make quite easily like $3 or $4 a game back then in those games.
Yeah.
Comparatively to now, where you could probably make 70 cents if you're very good. So I decided I had to take it a bit more seriously. I found a couple of former Oxbridge grads who were in the same games who had a coaching website, and so I was just kind of playing on the fly. I'd read like Power Hold'em by Negrani, and which was like kind of just said what people were doing was they were like folding ace jack offsuit under the gun at the first level and just tightening up towards and getting to bubbles and just playing the ICM reasonably well, not amazingly, but just well enough. So I just kind of decided to raise way more than all those players and steal more, even though it didn't really matter very much, but just get into more post-op situations with people who weren't comfortable with it. And I've always been somebody who likes to take risks post-op. I kind of find it more fun. Again, that's probably why I gravitated towards cash. But then I found these guys who simplified the game a lot for me. And I've always kind of held the notion that if somebody can simplify what you find complicated and just articulate it well, they just have a really good understanding of something. They don't necessarily, like, you can have people who understand things well, but to themselves, but they don't articulate it very well, and therefore I think their understanding isn't quite as good as somebody who can articulate it well. So they pushed me down a more professional attitude. They taught me to load games as I lost them, and they basically made me focus on my hourly, whereas before I was just literally focusing on what I could make per game, and I would do anything I could to make sure my shark scope graph looked nice. And it did look nice for a while.
Yeah.
And then I found out about the rate back program. So I guess we might have some viewers who don't know what the Supernova Elite thing was, but It was when, yeah, do you remember those days? So PokerStars basically used to encourage you to pay about $180,000 of rake per year by saying, if you do this, we will give you bonuses through the year, which will total up to a grand total of about $100,000. And then if you do it again the next year, it'll be 120,000, and then it will just repeat on 120. So I floated this idea with these guys, and they were just developing a table selection software at the time, which was about a second quicker than the mainstream one.
Wow.
Way more accurate. It would basically, they had multiple scripts which would, as soon as somebody sat, instantly sharp scope them, and it would give them a score, and it would give the game a score, and you could set, like, when you jumped in, like, would be like 3 players, 4 players, or whatever. They had 3 guys on the script, so it made sense to get in on the 3rd player. So as like the 4th player, but when the 3rd player is sat. So we would all score the game. Like, it would have to be an exceptional game for us to jump in on the 3rd player. But if it wasn't, then none of us would jump in. We all just kind of made like a decision. So I never had to look at a lobby. So I first went for it in 2013. I didn't have to look at a lobby. I did like an interview with some magazine. I can't remember what it was, but we were talking about going on through some pretty big swings. The idea of playing as many sit and goes as we were going to play. But also in the back of my mind, I was just thinking, if I just select well, there's a really, really good chance I probably won't go on massive swings, because obviously variance is a product of your equity in the game. Like, if you're a 1% winner, then a standard deviation shift is going to make you like a significant loser over whatever sample you go with, or winner. But if you're like a 4% winner, which was thoroughly achievable because I was playing turbos at the time, not hypers, and if you select well and you've got 2 fish in every single game, then you're just going to be a small winner or a break-even player. And I didn't go through a downswing of over like 50 buy-ins until the last 2 weeks when I was playing hypers. So my first year, Danny So 6 says, what stakes? I was playing like $60 turbos up to $500 turbos, but and rake speeds, but they barely ran at that point. And the rake speed ROIs were closer to 9 or 10%, by the way, because when they did run, they were just through like people who loved the game, like just genuine recreational players. So the scores for the GUI would require to put you in like a 500 game would have to be really, really high. So I'd only be getting in like 2.5 fish games plus. So if like all the regs who saw me jump in those games knew they missed a game because I was only getting in really soft ones. So having had my best year before that, I think was like $65,000. My first Supernova Elite year, I made something like $90,000 before rate back, and then obviously had the 100,000 on top of it.
Wow.
And then I got Supernova Elite 2014 and 2015 as well. And then they decided to take it away from me.
Right, yeah.
Which was a lot of fun.
Good that you made some hay while the sun was shining, you know. Yeah.
Man, but what I always kind of never really felt like I was making all the hay, because I got introduced to because the hypers came in at the end of halfway through 2013.
Okay.
Or maybe a little earlier, I can't remember. So there were a lot of these guys who were like making these goals. There was this Russian fella called Shabalin Vlad, whose name is Vladimir Shabalin. And he was always going for like the record for the amount of rake paid. And I think one year he paid like $700,000 rake or something ridiculous. And he was like always grinding 100 hours, but I could never, ever do that. As I said before, like if I really go for something for a long time, my focus wanes massively. I end up, I don't want to say getting overwhelmed, but I know myself now, like when I'm burning out, my decisions become lazy, and I need stuff like football or like tag rugby. I play tag rugby most Saturdays with my friends. I have like really silly goals and in the gym and stuff like that. Like actually, like a few years ago, I did like a muscle up, and it was the happiest I felt in ages. But it was like one where you're kipping, so you're using momentum to get up. It took me like 3 years to get a strict muscle up in, and I did it over lockdown. And again, that buzz was just fantastic. And the funny thing was, like after that, I just felt incredibly ready to grind at poker, because I just hit a goal that was nothing to do with poker, and I was just set, and I was happy, and I was focused. And those kind of things I just can't really put I can't really quantify their importance, but they're really just good for me completely switching off from the game. And then when I get back to the game, I'm just like thinking range on range. It's just so easy for me. But when I've been playing, especially tournaments where it's multiple stack depths and the variation in strategies coming from different SPRs, it can really, for me, it really like clouds my brain. Like if I play over and over and over again, day after day. So I have such admiration for the guys who can do that. I think they must have just incredible brain capacity to do that.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I know my role as someone who isn't going to be there 7 days a week, 365 days a year grinding, but I will turn up and hopefully I'll be making money when I do.
So is it mostly tournaments you're playing just now, or is it mostly cash games?
Well, for the last 6 months. 6 months? No, that's wrong. Since May, so 4 months, I've been playing basically exclusively cash games.
Okay.
I played tournaments for a lot of this year up to the main event of Scoop. And Pads actually put like a tweet out talking about how the ecosystem is going to be bled dry if the sites keep just whacking massive guarantees on tournaments because people are going to run out. And we could already see it happening. The first 6 weeks of lockdown were absolute carnage. One of my horses cleared $90,000 of makeup in the first 4 weeks, and I did pretty well as well. And it was just a fantastic first 6 weeks. But the game, you could then just see the first prizes of every daily tournament dropping slowly and slowly. And I was just like, this doesn't look great. And that coupled with the amount of effort I put in to grind through Scoop, I just wasn't that asked about playing tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did some maths on the DCE stuff. And I was just like...
The DCE stuff, did you say?
Yeah, Diamond Club Elite. I was like, this could be much better. And... I mean, it's just a fun thing to be able to switch as well. I've always needed that variety. I think I'm in a pretty fortunate position that I can play both formats. Not amazing, I wouldn't say I'm at the top of either format, but I was playing them reasonably well. I think that it was quite nice hearing this from Cam of all people, because Ishtar's he's just such a fantastic player. I believe he used to work with you guys, and he said it's really, really great that you can switch between either format or either formats just when you fancy it, because sometimes he feels completely over it, especially with his mindset where he feels like he's being cheated all the time. But yeah, I do appreciate that the ability to switch between formats is quite nice.
Sure.
Although I think a lot of people lean towards the idea that specialization is really important. My mindset, I think being able to keep it fresh is really important for me, because I'm not somebody who adores poker. I just really, really like what poker gives me, which is the lifestyle I have, even though it's kind of limited by lockdown at the moment.
I think what you said about having non-poker goals where you can just make fairly linear progress towards some defined goal, it's a really big thing for poker players, because you play poker all day and you're trying to get to some goal, but it can just move away from you for a long time, and it's not how we're built to think, not how we're built to interpret events. So yeah, something trying to do a muscle up, it's it's a perfect goal, man. Just you're just going to make slow progress towards it and eventually get there.
Yeah, also I think the tricky thing about poker is the way we keep score is with how much we've won, but also it's not always reflective of your skill always. So it can be demoralizing trying to reach this goal or reach a certain stake, but then if you have 300,000 hands of breaking even at a stake, even though you're a clear winner in that stake. It might not be clear to you because your confidence drains and whatnot, but I mean, it can really crush you. There's a kid who this kid called Bowie Effect, who's a really, really talented tournament player, and he was. Obviously, it's tournaments, so you can go for 2 years without winning, and that's not necessarily that's not necessarily reflective of you being a losing player. You can just have been cooler than the top 18, the last 18 a lot of times, because the sample of hands you play when the equity is that high is
a few thousand.
very small. Yeah. And he was getting crushed for a long time, but he's, in terms of how he articulates his thoughts and how he explains the game, he's up there with one of the best minds. He actually got out of his downswing the other day. I think he cashed for like 170k, and then he cashed 40k and something else. So he cleared his hole. But a couple of weeks before that, he messaged me saying that he was struggling. So this isn't me trying to sound like I'm a good Samaritan, but because he's like a nice kid at heart, and like he just thinks about the game so well. I just gave him a call and said, don't give up, because honestly, you jump. He's new to poker, so like this all feels like it's like a conspiracy against him, like when you're running that bad, but obviously it's not that. And I just said, don't give up, because like honestly, in terms of how you think about ranges, and MTT ranges are much wider than cash ranges, and they're rake free, so you have to even wider again, and there's an ante in there. The way he manages to think about the game is really, really excellent. And yeah, he didn't, and I mean, obviously he got lucky to get those scores, but like I was really pleased when he did get them, because he can now kick on now and really make waves.
Yeah. I don't follow the TBC much anymore at all, to be honest. I heard that Fedor's been doing really well the last few days. Just no surprise. He seems to just do that, man. He just seems to crank it out.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool for him.
I mean, yeah, he's a fantastic player. He's probably running over EV, but he is a really, really, really good player.
Also, I've been railing these. Marcus and Linus have been playing these 500, 1K, 2K games on GG.
Yeah, I've been watching those.
Oh my God. I asked G how Marcus was getting on, and he was like, oh yeah, he lost a mil at first, and then he was up a mil, and now it's about break even. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think I saw the first mil he lost.
Yeah,
I mean, at least I remember I met him in Barcelona a couple of years ago, and I think he was just climbing to the 10K games.
Okay.
So grounded, such a nice guy.
Yeah.
We were just talking. We were just like they're having breakfast, and we were talking about how we both like to not eat before we play, and we'll just like. And he was just like, yeah, I like to play in a fast state for my first 2-hour session. Then I'll run sims. Then I'll have some food, and I'm like, hey, me too. We're basically the same.
Oh yeah.
Not the same.
You're into that, the intermittent fasting and stuff like that. You do that?
I tend not to have breakfast in inverted commas. I tend to. I find So I was talking to a friend of mine who's not in poker. She's in a hedge fund actually. She's actually in a very rare type of hedge fund. I think they like to support the shorts. I think, which obviously is finite. The return on investment is finite compared to if you're longing something. I think that's what she said, because you can only go on a minus 100 swing as opposed to an infinite increase.
Right.
So there aren't many hedge funds that do that. Anyway, she was talking to me about that and saying how there isn't like a whole lot of science behind it. And I was like, well, okay, if there isn't, it doesn't really matter, because I just feel great when I do it.
It works for you. It works for you.
Yeah. And I just find like I'm way more focused if I haven't eaten. It's something to do with, all these sources are going to have decent rebuttals. I've not read every rebuttal, but I wanted to read up on it, and it was something to do with like when you're sleeping, your body is in a natural repair mode. It's basically where you do most of your growth post exercise or whatever. And when you wake, the thing that triggers your body out of that repair mode is the ingestion of food, or just calorie ingestion. So when you eat, you're no longer in repair mode. You're no longer like drawing energy from your storage. I mean, I'm obviously, showing how little I understand it, because I'm just kind of slurring all this rubbish. But yeah, I ended up doing a fast for 40 hours about a month ago, and I didn't feel hungry at any point until until I thought to myself, right, I'm going to have something to eat in 2 hours, and then I suddenly started getting a bit hungry.
Nice watering.
Laser focus the whole
Yeah.
time. I played as well as I played, and I put in like 3 sessions during that time, and I didn't do exercise. I think exercise is kind of probably detrimental because you're just not offering your body the fuel to repair. But then I ate and I stuffed myself for 8 hours, and then went back to normal. But yeah, as I said, I think I just function better in the mornings when I've not like had something heavy. I just have a coffee and some water, and I'm good. And then I'll just have a nice lunch and crack on with my day. But I always seem to play better and feel better when I'm in a fast state. I also learn better as well. I just process more information. So when I'm studying as well, I will take in more information. I'll understand the why more, which is obviously way more important than memorizing what a sim looks like.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're still in Clapham, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I moved across the common though, so
okay.
I'm in a different place now. I was living in a 2-bed, which I was living in alone, but I changed the other bedroom into an office because you obviously work from home as well, but are you in your bedroom right now, or do you have an office?
No, I'm in my living room. I have a little office corner of my living room. I recently got on the standing desk hype, and I'm loving that, man. It's really, really
It's a standing desk as well, but I also got me a nice little chair, so I've got to use it sometimes,
yeah.
I'm glad up now. Let me ask you this: how do you separate? So you're in your living room, presumably you've got a TV in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you separate chilling out and working if you're in the same room?
For me, it's really not an issue. It's kind of that half of the room is chilling, this half of the room is work. But it's also, I just don't find poker as stressful as I used to. When I was like much earlier on in my career, I think I was playing like 50, maybe 100 NL, and I did have like just a little desk in the corner of a bedroom, and that was not good, man. That's like definitely not how you want to do it. But presumably you're saying that because you think you should have a completely separate room, right?
Well, yeah, I think for me that's what works. That's why I asked, because I thought it was interesting. I used to, so I've lived in 3 places in Clapham. The first one isn't so far away. I was living with the banker I talked to you about, and I used to play from my bedroom, but I would find myself after sessions just completely wired in my own bedroom because I was like, well, I've just been working there for and this was like on a Sunday, I would have played a tournament and I would have, or loads of tournaments, and then I'd finish at like 3 or 4 in the morning and I couldn't sleep. And he would wake up like 3 hours later and go to work, and I would still be awake and it would just be shit. So the next place I decided to make sure I had an office, and I just find the separation. I find walking into a room and being like, right, work time. There's nothing else. Like occasionally I'm in here, of course, and I'll be watching like a stream or something, and that's fine because it's still like poker, and you're just kind of passive learning, I guess, or at least passive not making mistakes because you're watching people make mistakes. Bang bang. But I can't think of working in an area of the house which is meant for relaxation. Like my girlfriend at the moment is working in the living room, but I think it's kind of fine because she is new to working from home and it's not as intensive. I've always thought of poker hours. If you say I work for 8 hours, and this might be wrong because like I've not worked in normal office life, but I've always like thought that because you're making so many decisions, like maybe every couple of seconds, every 3 seconds, especially if you're playing Zoom, I would say like a poker hour of work is probably the same as a normal hour of work is probably the same about 1.5 hours of poker. No, other way around. That's what I'm trying to say.
I see what you're saying.
It's too intensive. You can't just like lean back and let hands go by and go to the vending machine or whatever.
No lunch breaks,
Sure. So I think it's fine because you can have those natural switch offs. Like she takes calls, of course. She works for Spotify, so she takes lots of calls and deals with meetings. But then, like the meeting finishes, she can have a 5-minute lull, and that's fine. You can't really do that unless you want to lose a bunch of money if you're playing Zoom poker.
Yeah, sure.
Or forward. So I think having an office is pretty beneficial to me, but then there are some people who can do what you do really easily.
Yeah, I mean, so like we're in like a 1.5 bedroom flat here in central Edinburgh. I don't think we'll be here like for many years into the future. And yeah, when I get a house, I'll be quite keen to have like an office or a study, like a separate room would be cool. But for now, this is absolutely fine for me. So yeah.
When did you leave Mexico, by the way? Because that looked pretty sweet.
Left Mexico in the middle of July. Yeah, 15th of July.
Why did you leave?
Basically, my wife and I were trying to like sort her spouse visa. So we went to Mexico City to do her like English test and also to submit the documents, but the place was closed and it wasn't really showing any signs of reopening. And so yeah, we kind of decided, like, obviously the government was saying like, come home if you're in one of these places, like you got to get yourself home. And yeah, just decided to do it. I also like the Scottish summer is like amazing. Like it's not. I saw
those pictures.
We saw. Oh yeah, we took a holiday up north in the last couple of weeks. It was like amazing, really good. So
I did my Duke of Edinburgh Gold in Lochimber.
Did you really?
Yeah, and the first day we were there was one of the nicest days I've had in my life. Which is obviously I didn't see it coming. I didn't have any warm weather clothes. So
Okay.
Jumped in the ocean in my boxers. And,
dude. I proposed to my wife at Achmelvich. She's like very near Lochimber.
Right.
Yeah, and we went in the sea. That was like the story. Like she was giving a huge chat about wanting to go into the sea for a swim. This is late October. Road trip. So I was like, okay, and yeah, like proposed as we got out of the water. It was nice, man. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, well, that's great, man. You know, I used to live in Scotland, right?
You used to live in Scotland?
Yeah.
No.
I spent like 7 years in St Andrews.
In St Andrews, I see.
My mum and dad used to run a school in St Andrews, yeah.
Run a school? Wow, there's a lot of schools in St Andrews.
Yeah, it was a massive. So there's a school called St Leonard's there, which is a massive girls' school, and they had Eda, St Catherine's, and it was a big boarding school, and yeah, I had to live there. It was sweet because the long jump pit was the sand castle heaven for me. The
what? Sorry, the
long jump sand pit was. Okay. I used to sabotage every athletics.
I see.
Yeah.
So it was when you were quite young.
Yeah. That was last week, mate. Yeah.
Well,
it was a really good upbringing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, St Andrews is a nice place. Got nice beaches. Very posh, but.
And I'm not posh, so.
I believe you, bro.
I was looking at the chat questions. Tom says, have I played the WSOP main? Yes, I have. Tom.
How many times you played the main?
Once. I was actually chip leader after day 2 as well. It was pretty.
Were you really? Holy shit!
It was pretty ridiculous because you and I understand that the WSOP main is like a 9-day event, but so because it's the main event, there's lots of hype, and some Vegas journal was saying, Lawrence. I mean, my first name is Lawrence. The only people who call me Lawrence, like the doctor, the dentist, and poker. But Lawrence Bayley is chip leader, and it was really funny. I mean, like I obviously ran amazing to have so many chips, but I ended up just getting in the money and busting like 900th or something. But it was not all of my friends, but suddenly there's a lot of hype on my Facebook, and people were messaging me, and I really don't like talking about poker on Facebook. I'm not a big fan of talking about results on Twitter or anything like that, really, because I think the silence is deafening when you aren't talking about them, especially in tournament poker. So I just leave it alone. I mean, obviously people are like trying to build a brand, but I don't really like doing that. I kind of just like to quietly get it done.
Sure.
And I had to do multiple how do you say plural of status? Is it state I or statuses? I guess it's
statuses.
Yeah, I had to do like statuses explaining like, okay, this is the situation. Let's not like get ridiculous about it. But then once I'd done one, I had to do updates, and I felt like such a tosser. But like people were like genuinely enthusiastic about it, so it was quite nice. But like,
I don't think there's much wrong with it, man. Like, yeah. I had a similar thing once. I made the final table of a tournament in Amsterdam. I was chip leader going into.
Was that the M Cup?
M Cup. That was it. Yeah,
nice
M
one.
Cup main event.
That's a big thing to get into.
Yeah, it was a really nice tournament. But yeah, all my friends, like the link got posted on my Facebook, and my uncles and my friends and stuff like that were all watching it, and like yeah, I kind of like you're right that like the silence is deafening, and it's kind of lame to just like get all this like, oh my god, that's amazing, when like most of the time you're just putting it in quietly, and you're just like yeah, when you're just kind of grinding and getting no recognition for it, to suddenly get like all this recognition for just running good over a couple thousand hands, it's like I see what you're saying, that it's kind of lame.
Okay, it's not a couple of thousand hands.
Yeah, it's maybe 1,000 hands. It's like very few hands.
Yeah. No, I mean, that said, I think like from a personal perspective, running deep in a live tournament, it's bloody fun. Like it's really, really exciting. It's not always easy to keep your emotions in check. It's not always easy to sleep, but the actual sensation of getting to a live final table is really, really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really. I mean, I always think when I'm not involved in a final table, I always think how lame it is, how excited people are. But then when you get there and you're like, maybe I could take a trophy home. Like it's a bit more exciting. Yeah.
I would say like in terms of like the feeling of the sort of lived experience of playing like online cash versus online heads up is like feels much more personal, if you're like losing to this guy or beating this guy, it's like
your money is literally going to this person.
Yeah. But like the tournament thing is just completely different. I don't know how to not get married to every tournament I play. It's like I just if I make the first break, I'm like, well, it's going pretty well, that one. You know what I mean? It's like I just don't seem to be able to get past that. So I do think it's pretty high.
Play lots.
Well, yeah.
Then you'll start hating every second of them.
Sorry, hating every
second of them if you play lots of them.
No, it is. You're right to say that. Like even an online like final table or whatever, it's like it's pretty exciting. There's
so much pressure on every decision, and like it's about managing that pressure. So most people, and like there's a really good course actually that's out there from the Big Bluff Sync group about ICM, but most people are doing the ICM thing on the fly. I think like the best guys at the ICM side of things are actually probably the bitB guys. I think like Sam's especially
a lot of time in it, man. Yeah.
But most people are kind of doing it on the fly, and I think. Sorry, I'm just reading some comments. But I think the pressure on making a mistake is so massive, especially in the big final tables where there's a lot of money up top. Some people thrive on that, and some people don't. I had a pretty big tournament a couple of years ago, which I know that you railed because you said congrats afterwards. But I was very aware that everyone else at that table was not inexperienced, but like it was a massive amount of money to them. So I was being pretty aggressive in spots where I probably should have been more passive. Like someone would open MP and I would just, without really thinking, 3-bet ace jack off suit from the small blind. Even if we were equal chip leader, I was just going for it, knowing that they really, really didn't want to be in a big pot. And that's questionable, but it's a pretty decent exploit, especially when there's like big 6 figures up top. So when you have really, really good players, you just cannot do that. And the pressure, I had another final table with Sam actually, and another very good player called Steak Addict. And it was basically like a 9 reg FT. It was about 110,000 for first. And I knew I just couldn't do that. I went in with the chip lead, but I knew I couldn't be like an absolute, shitbag and run over them because I knew they were going to play very well. And I didn't enjoy that FT at all because I knew that any mistake I made would be punished by them. And I knew that because of my 6 max ICM stuff when I was sit and go player, I was, reasonably well prepared, but the actual study aspect of the ICM for that pay structure wasn't that great. And I knew that there were at least a couple of guys there who were going to supersede me in terms of skill level when it came to FT ICM. Because when you're at nine people left, like it's a really terrible result to come ninth. So you can put a bunch of pressure on there. But the biggest ICM, I think, I could be wrong, but I think it usually comes 5th till 4th. I think that's the biggest like pressure jump. And like some guy, and there was one guy who was a reg but wasn't really, he made it fairly clear he wasn't that aware of the ICM. Like he was just doing like he was making some raises and then calling 3-bets, leaving himself with 12 big blinds and stuff like that. Like he was a reg, but I'd made like a very small 3-bet because like he basically shouldn't be doing much calling. And yeah, he ended up losing like over a third of his stack by doing that, and like that's a lot of money in that FD. So there were some guys who like you could lean on, but it wasn't enough to like make it enjoyable as a chip leader, because I still had Sam Basden to my left, and I still had another reg called Bernie, who was pretty good as well. And yeah, I came 4th, and I ended up punting the last bit. Well, it wasn't a huge punt. It was just like I made a sizing error on the river and made a lazy call, which is losing, but it wasn't like enormous. It was just yeah.
So like, are you a Pio guy? You mainly study with Pio type stuff?
Yeah. What else can you study with?
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like,
I think mainly Pio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I tend to look at the solutions, and then I try and look at, with objectivity, like what I really think people are going to do. And that doesn't have to come from the showdown itself. Like that has to come down from a reasonable intuition of like what's going on.
Yeah.
I actually, just before this, I was kind of just watching the 500 Zoom observe, because I kind of just like having an idea of seeing how the money goes in, seeing if people are just making that good protection jam on the turn, like a 3-bet pot, if people are doing that, or if they're calling down with like a Jack 9 on a Jack 10-7 when they should be just, shoving the turn because it protects well against the turn bluff and all that stuff. I kind of want to see that. And then if I see that showdown, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like the bluffs realize just so much better against that player. And then I can double barrel with more hands and blah, blah, blah. I think that's really, really interesting to do that. I also saw some stuff which was very, very aggressive. So you now know that you call down versus certain players that you previously wouldn't have. I just kind of like keeping in touch with that. And I like to run sims, and I like to just change variables and see how the outputs differ, and that gives me like an index of intuition. So that let's just say you're running a sim for Queen 9-7 and 3-bet pot, small blind versus button, and you look at that output and you're just like, okay, all right, that's the strategy. Right, what happens if I change the 7 to an 8 and suddenly there's a possible straight complete and there's more 2 pairs and blah blah blah. And in positions EV generally increases when it goes bet and call, and then there's just a lot of turn cards where out of position doesn't enjoy life, like a 9 or a 10 or a jack, all those kind of hands, all those cards. So the EV of in position just increases a lot on Jack 9-8 Queen 9-8 compared to Queen 9-7, and developing that understanding of why that is much more important, I think, than, as I said before, memorizing outputs. I mean, only like a handful of players can memorize outputs, and even those players find it more beneficial to understand the why, which I think is why Linus went from being a really, really good reg to just being the best in the world. Because when I first met him, he seemed like somebody who just memorized every single sim. But then, like, when he turned out to be the best of all time, from what I understand, he's just been figuring out the why on such a fantastic level that he just can exploit people really, really well as well, which before he wasn't doing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry?
I went on a bit there, sorry.
No, you're okay. I was gonna say, you mentioned like you have some horses and stuff like that, like you do some coaching and stuff like that as well?
I used to. I just didn't. I found it a bit like arduous. Like I have to really like somebody to get on a call with them and like talk to them about stuff that like isn't that fun to me. So I thought that I wanted to, when I first started coaching, I thought this will be fun. It looked like the natural progression for a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
You play sit and goes for a while, you make a bit of money, and then you coach. It's a really easy passive income. And back then, staking was like just a passive income for loads of people. Like basically anybody who'd made over $100,000 would then stake somebody, and then you got an extra like 40K a year. That's basically how it worked. But nowadays it's just so competitive. So I do still work in that space, but I think staking is just such a different animal now. It's not just giving money and then occasionally coaching people. It's also like a management thing. You have to deal with helping somebody with their mindset. You have to just be a pretty cool person as well with them. I'm not saying that I'm cool or anything, but like you have to just be understanding and able just to have a chat with them. You have to be their friend. Yeah. Unless you have people you pay to manage a situation. Like the way the bitB did, I think bitB scaled down quite a lot. I think they were aiming to have like 400 players at one point, but they scaled down. And I think Big Bluff Sync did the same thing. I think the only staking companies that really do a lot, like massive numbers, are the South American ones. And even though they have like tiers of players where they basically don't pay much attention to them and then just cash in when they run deep in something. So I think, I mean, I used to coach more than I did. I actually took this player called Thought. We were in this Skype group called the Sit and Go Party, which was obviously not a party. It was one of the most boring groups in history. But he joined the group and was playing like $7 9-man sit and goes. And he was like, he won't mind me saying this, he was pretty crap. But he posted a hand history and somebody was absolutely flaming him. And I was just thinking about getting into coaching. And the hand was crap. Like he was playing it terribly. And I just messaged him privately and said, "Hey, I'm looking to get into coaching." Sent him the link to my SharkScope and said, "This is me. I'm not like I'm not a millionaire or whatever. I've been playing like for a fair bit. I'm thinking of getting into coaching. Why don't I give you a free session and we'll see what happens?" And he took it up and he ended up staying with me. And I said, "Right, okay, I can't keep giving you free sessions, but let's get into this. I'll take a percentage." And he's got a really pretty SharkScope now. I think he's made like 350,000 on SharkScope. So like he's done well. And then I took on another couple of guys on a staking deal. And I probably worked with like 7 or 8 players. Okay. And obviously like when it's successful, you enjoy it and stuff like that. But the actual getting on a call with somebody, part of it is going into a call not really sure if somebody is going to take on what you're saying. I had a Belgian player who, very nice bloke, and I get on with him like fantastically well. But he himself would probably admit that he's more of a kind of a good feel for the game, and he's got some good live results subsequently. But then when I would coach him something, 2 weeks later he would show me like a hand, and then he would give me like some reasonably wishy-washy reasonings, and I wasn't on board with it. I've always needed a proof or like good logic for a decision ahead of, well, I think this because like there is a dynamic. I didn't enjoy that kind of reasoning because there are some people just playing solid ranges and play their range well rather than, wow, this guy's 3-bet me twice, I better 4-bet him now.
Okay.
Yeah. So the answer is not really anymore. I do occasional sessions with the guys I work with now, but one of them I outsource some of the coaching, and the other one, I do sessions weekly with. Cool. But nothing on the scale that you guys do. Like and as I said before, like the guys who work with you guys have a very good resource to tap into.
Yeah, it's been, Marcus has made a huge difference, man, to be honest. Like we obviously had some really strong players and stuff before, but just having Marcus around, like even like in our coach's channel and whatever, we ask him about hands, and he just has a very, very clear idea of what's going on.
You might have.
Yeah, it's been great.
You probably have a very good idea.
Yeah. He's he's a spaceman. That's the highest compliment I can give him. So what else has been going on? You've been playing touch rugby, you play a bit of football. Is that still at the, what's that place called? At the Clapham place where we played?
Yeah, that's where we played, yeah. It's still there. It's a bit of a different crowd now because one of the guys, Tobbs, who I know you know, the banker, he needs knee surgery. I had knee surgery just before lockdown, actually. And yeah, it was great because lockdown, no one was doing anything, and now I'm just back fit again. So it worked pretty well. By the way, morphine is bloody awesome.
Oh, really?
Fantastic stuff.
Oh.
It really is.
Well, be careful with that one, man.
Oh yeah, obviously I only had it when I was having the surgery. It wasn't like I went.
But you felt it, like you noticed it strong.
Oh, I mean, obviously when you wake up, you're just like high as a kite. You love it.
Wow. Why did you need knee surgery? Was it an ACL or something?
I tore my meniscus.
Okay.
I had the problem for like 3 years, 2.5 years, and just got it done. I waited for the NHS, nothing happened, and I just ended up going private, and they sorted it out in 2 weeks.
Cool.
It was great. But I had reasonable functionality. I just, whenever I fatigued the muscle group around the knee, I basically would. So how meniscus works essentially is that, like, if you tear it, there's just basically a little bit of loose cartilage hanging around your knee, and the muscle group around the knee keeps your knee in a solid position. Your bones and joints aren't particularly strong. It's the muscle support which essentially stops your knee slipping out of place a lot of the time. But it's the same with most joints. In fact, that's why like Johnny Wilkinson was able to do the hits he was able to do when he was playing for England and Newcastle, was because like he was just so densely muscular on his shoulders. He could just take massive hits. If he didn't have those, he would shatter his shoulder all the time. So I'm able to support my knee reasonably well, but as soon as my muscles fatigue, obviously there's more lactic acid there, there's less functionality in the knee, and then the cartilage, when it was not supported by the knee, would just kind of like flip, and it would lock the knee in a position, like my leg would just be locked like that, which was like miserable. In fact, in the World Series main, when I was chip leader, I was walking around in crutches because my knee.
Really?
Yeah, I looked like ridiculous. And I bumped into Elliot Rowe, who I had sessions with, and he didn't really recognize me because I had my hood up and I was in crutches, and I was like, Elliot, how are you doing? He's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I was like, oh yeah, sorry, got a knee problem. But it was nice to meet him finally because we'd done a few Skype sessions, and yeah. But yeah, it was a tricky one, and then I finally got it sorted, and I feel great just being able to exercise again properly without having fear of injury. Although I did kind of wreck my hamstring on Saturday, but yeah, it was it's really fun. I just go to the gym all the time now, and I'm enjoying just being fit and fitter anyway, and I just love being active. I feel like I don't have many years of it left because I'm 32, and I mean I think you could probably go into your 50s if you really wanted to, but I'm not sure I'd be able to be any good at anything when I'm in my 50s. That's why I'm buying some golf clubs. So.
Oh, really? Getting into the golf. Wow, good stuff.
Yeah, I'm not very good, but I didn't realize when you bought golf clubs that they change clubs for you and stuff like that. And I realized I actually don't hit the ball as wildly as I usually do if I actually have clubs that work for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We change the club head angle and stuff, so you hit the ball, you don't hit the ground. Like I'm not very good at golf, but one of the problems I had was that I would heel the ground a lot. So I would scuff way more often than I should. So they just changed the angle by 2 degrees, and like you're just getting a natural slide of the club face on the floor.
2 degrees upright, you mean?
Yeah.
Tall. You must be a little tall, right?
Yeah, I'm not tall, but
no,
I'm like 5'11", but like for the club they were recommending me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Tom says, do you think intuition is a natural instinct, or can it be learned and trained through the use of tools? It's a good question. I think intuition comes from experience mostly. I think natural intuition is of course natural, but I think like once you develop a wealth of experience in a topic, you can just get what would be referred to quite ambiguously as gut feel. It's about how your brain stores that kind of information. Like some things I know, like having worked with some people, is like if you talk, if you tell them something, then there's just naturally going to be something shoved out the other side of their head, and they won't remember that. But if you're able just to store things, or if you have that like ability to store little things in your mind, then your intuition will just naturally develop if you're able to as I mentioned, create that index and remember why something is giving that output or that reason. So I think, yeah, it can be developed, but you kind of have to have a certain brain type for that development to happen, I think. What do you think on that?
I think talent is a myth, to be honest. In most fields, especially poker, I think there's just like some amount of work you just have to do. And there is obviously like some people have got more of a mind for it than others. It's not as if like it's like it takes a certain amount of awareness and whatever. It takes a certain amount of a certain type of brain, I guess you could say. But I don't see many guys who like consistently put the work in the right direction and like stay self-aware, stay self-critical, and don't end up making it, you know. Whereas like I never see guys who don't put in the work on a consistent basis and do make it. And I think that's kind of just enough to know that like you just got to put in the work, I think.
So what do you think? So do you think you like were born with a certain work ethic and that's why you've been able to sustain your longevity? Because I was talking to, we were in the Bahamas last November, so Party Poker did a promotion where sorry?
Punta Cana, is it that thing?
No, that was they did do that, but this was in Bahama.
Oh, okay.
So I think I won a seat there, but like they did this promotion where if you played these 5 events, they would give you a free 10K ticket to the Nottingham version of it, which was pretty sick. And we were there, and my girlfriend was there, and then another tournament player, a guy called Michael Skłaniczka, his screen name is Smallkind B, he's a very good tournament player, and another guy called Clement Tamakov, who's a good cash game player. We were just sitting there with so Clement was there with his wife, and I was there with my girlfriend, and Michael was there on his own, and we were talking about how people come and go in poker a lot, and how it's a real kind of stamp of honor if you've been around for a long time, because you've kind of been through like different evolutions of the game and whatnot. Sure. I was there when they had Sit and Go Wizard as the ICM tool in Sit and Go. Sure. Then like you had Card Runners EV for the post flop tools and blah blah blah. Now we have PO and Munker. And, so what do you think made you like overcome the hurdles that have created such longevity for yourself? Because I remember meeting you and we were in one of those PokerStars parties in London, and you were
that was a long time.
Just play GTO, mate. Just play GTO. We'll be fine.
Is that what I said?
Yeah. I think you just looked at me like, who's this idiot?
Longevity. Well, I think I think that if you push too hard, I think burnout is like a super common thing for poker players. I think people who push themselves too hard on a consistent basis are just eventually going to crack. So I very much focus on like quality over quantity with regards to volume. I mentioned I don't try and play a huge amount of hands. I do always one of the big things for me with the whole like the bitB cash and all that kind of thing is like we get young guys who are like hungry, they want it, you know, and it's like I kind of feed on their enthusiasm for it. I've been playing 10 years full time, and it is a long time, you know, and so yeah, I think like sort of tapping into other people's enthusiasm and sort of seeing, you know, there's like a lot of our students have really substantially changed their life from you know, especially from the money side of things, like and that's great to see, and I like sort of being a part of that journey and helping them through it. So yeah, I think like the community aspect as well, like if you're just a lone wolf, it's hard, I think, to like keep going, especially when it's rough, which it will be. Like every single person will have a downswing larger than they believe possible if they play for long enough, right? So it's like, yeah, if you have a group of people who you can sort of get a sanity check from, or who can just like keep you on the straight and narrow when you need it, I think it makes a huge difference. So yeah, community, I think, is like underrated factor in poker.
What's your largest downswing?
Good question. In
Question
buying,
everyone wants to know.
I had a huge downswing last year, around this time last
I
year.
think I heard about this actually.
Yeah, it was nuts. In terms of buy-ins, my previous worst downswing was something like 40, 50 buy-ins. I lost 87 buy-ins playing cash games. Luckily, it was like mostly pretty low stakes. No, that was mostly 200 Zoom. So I was playing pretty low, and honestly, I was doing a fairly bad job of being a professional. Like I was, yeah, I wasn't keeping up on my study. You know, I'm sure everyone goes through like ebbs and flows with that regard. But I wouldn't have been close to my biggest dollar downswing. Biggest dollar downswing would probably be something in the region of like 50, 60K, something like that. I always tend to be a guy, I think it's maybe held me back over the years, to be honest, but I've always tended to be a guy where if it's going bad, I'm like pretty quick to jump down stakes as well as jump up. So yeah, I'm not, and also like I just with regards like risk tolerance and kind of like investment type stuff, if I get together like a significant amount of money, I would rather put it in something, like put it away basically. And so I don't tend to keep like huge amount of bankroll online for, you know, if it was to go really bad for a really long time. So yeah. What about you?
Buy-ins or dollars?
Both.
They're both big.
Go for it.
All right, so you got to remember I played tournaments as well. So like tournament swings like obviously enormous.
Okay. Yeah.
In hyper sit and goes, I think I lost 800 buy-ins once, which was fun. Yeah, but you got to remember you're playing
100 buy-ins.
Yeah, that was 6 months of glory. And then, but that's not like the biggest downswing I've heard. I've heard like 1,200 buy-ins and stuff like that. Like in hypers, you're playing. You have people who are just rate back hunting and like they were like happy with like -0.2 ROI, knowing they're getting like 3% rate back, so or 2% rate back. So like that's fine. So they're obviously going to deal with big swings. And I, at the time of that downswing, was very much a break-even hypers player. But by the end of my hypers coaching, I became like a 3% winner, which was one of the biggest ROIs possible. Not possible, but out there. And then in dollars, I really hope my mum doesn't watch this. My biggest downswing was about $200,000.
Holy fucking!
But I was playing reasonably high stakes in the China games.
Right.
So I started off with like a 300K upswing in China. It was unbelievable. I felt like a footballer with some of the weeks I was having, and like I had 350K weeks where I was like, "This is
holy shit!
I can't believe like how." I mean, I was obviously running absurd, and then I changed my agent because he was off. What did he offer me? Oh yeah, he offered me like a better deal, and he offered me an emulator which was really fast, so I could play it on my computer. I wasn't just there with four iPads just in.
You did the iPad thing, okay?
Yeah, but he put me in these clubs which were just awful games. Did you ever see the clip on? Did you ever see the clip on Twitter?
With like 20 Chinese guys in a room.
Yeah.
Like smoking and playing and like and all that kind of thing.
They were all taking my money. But he was. Then I found out that this guy, he used to play tennis for New Zealand and was done for match fixing, and I was like, this guy.
It's not the character reference.
No, I mean I wouldn't be. I called him out. I said, you must know how shit these games are. Like you cannot tell me that this club has good games. And he was just like, no, it seemed legit to me. And then when I found out that he was like a done for match fixing. Like, I mean, this guy makes so much money. Like he did so well during that Bitcoin upswing in 2017. Like, he must have been making like $1 million a month easily.
Jesus.
Like, he would not have given a fuck about some guy like on like a 200K downswing because he knew I'd have to get it back to him. And in the end, I basically, it was in this hole, and I said, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to smear him and then get murdered. But I said, listen, I'm not going to play the games anymore. Or at least I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the mainstream sites and I'm going to play for a little longer and on those, and I will get the money back to you. but give me time and I'll just do it in installments. And then I went on an absurd MTT heater, thankfully. And yeah, I managed to get it back to him in 18 months whilst making, I mean, this is basically a brag, I guess, but I was making quite a lot of profit in the process. I had to do a session with Elliot Rowe at the bottom of that downswing because one of my horses won the Millie on ACR for, I think it was like 190,000 or something, which was pretty sweet because he was in a big hole as well. So like I got the lion's share of that. But in the same week, I managed to just dust off 100K playing these 200 RMB games. So that's like, what's that? It's something like 10, 20, maybe okay. 10, 25, like 12, 25 in USD. So I just gave back like 40 buy-ins, and I was not a good player, but I knew I wasn't playing like anything close to badly compared to like these guys who were sitting there playing like 51-14. But all they were doing was they were just getting into pots post-flop with me and then just
multi-way pots, and then they just have 8 cards and you have 2.
Sharing cards, yeah, just wrecking me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was miserable. That was pretty tricky mindset.
I tried China once. I probably played less than 1,000 hands there total. And it just seemed to me like if everything goes fine, you make some money. But like eventually something's going to happen, right? It's like completely unregulated. You've no idea who these guys you're up against are. And like, yeah.
Well, mate, the problem was it was a big secret for about 6 months. And while it was a big secret, it was an absolute goldmine. But then people got greedy and they're like, oh, I'll tell you what, if I add another 15 players as an agent, I'm going to make so much more. And if you add enough players, you're going to find like a shitbag who's going to cheat. And that's what happened. Yeah. And then offices were made. I mean, one of my old housemates, a guy called Ivan Stokes, who's now playing just exclusively tournaments, I think, or coaching tournaments. Mm-hmm. He was about to take somebody on, and this guy ummed and ahed for about 10 days, and then he goes, and he ends up going with Ivan. Excuse me. And Ivan was like, great to have you on board. If you don't mind me asking, how come you took so long to decide? Must have been whoever was offering you something else must have had some pretty cool like USP, and it'd be great if I could add that to what I'm offering, so that I don't have to, so that I could be matching my competition. And he goes, oh yeah, well, I was being offered like $2,000 a week to get into an office and play with 4 iPads on the same game every day. Mm. So like he was just like being offered $2,000 a week to play a collusion game, and then they take profits on top of that.
Yeah.
Which is really tempting. Like, I mean, obviously it's tempting to anybody to earn like 6 figures like a year, just doing whatever. But then you get the profits on top of that. And if you're in like, I don't know, like Tallinn or somewhere where like you're going to have like really low cost of living, you can live like a fucking king, and you're not being held accountable.
I don't know if you can though. That's the thing, man. Like people, I don't think people would feel good about themselves doing that kind of thing, And it's like there's no amount of money I don't think that could like really compensate you for like knowing that you're cheating everyone that you're playing against,
Yeah, but Donald, like I know you and you know me, and like there is a moral compass there, whereas some people are just like I know
those people, man. You got to feel sorry for those people. Like I'm sure there's some people made some money, and maybe there's some people who just don't have a soul. But like I kind of just don't believe it. Like I kind of think that anyone who does that is going to hit a wall like pretty soon, because you got to feel good about yourself to like have a happy life and stuff,
Have you been to Bucharest?
I have been to Bucharest. Was it?
So you know that if you walk through Bucharest in the evening, you just see like streets of beautiful girls, and then on their arm are these like rotund short men with loads of jewelry. But that like the reason that, I mean, this could be a big generalization, but I do have it on good authority from Romanians as well, that the girls like security and protection, and the whole thing is about social status. So if you're they're able to give that, it doesn't really matter how it happened. Obviously, I'm not promoting it. I'm not saying, yeah, good lads. I'm just saying like it could be just a culture thing that you and I don't understand.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
And
So-
that was the podcast.
So are you playing like apps and China still, or is it?
No. I left that alone. I left that alone at the start of 2018.
Okay.
And I've just been on mainstream sites. I really tried to work on playing solidly. Also, the thing is with those games is they're rake free if you lose, and there's antes, so it's really different ball game. So
Yeah.
I didn't really know the ranges very well, so I didn't have any confidence as well by the end. So I came back to the mainstream sites, played quite like just mixing in 500 zoom when I felt like it, and tournaments when I felt like it, and I was pretty pleased. I got to, what did I get to? I got to I think 400, 500,000 hands in zoom, and was winning at 6, and I was pretty pleased with that. I just kept working. I was pool selecting hard as well, and obviously there's still some heat in there because I don't really believe in. I mean, if you only play, you don't play that many 4-bet pots in 500,000 hands. You play a lot, but not very many, and realistically, that can swing your win rate by a couple of BB pretty easily. So if you're just kind of getting people in those spots, so I don't really hold a lot of weight on a 500,000 hand sample, but
More than nothing.
Sorry.
It means more than nothing, less than everything, but more than nothing, you know?
Right, exactly. And having seen, as I said, I've been on enormous swings and sit and goes, having seen what can happen over enormous samples in sit and goes, I take everything with a pinch of salt. When somebody has an outstanding win rate, I'm just like this. There's a Finnish player called Seta Benny or something who apparently is murdering 500 zoom right now at 8 big blinds. And I'm just like, I mean, I've seen how he plays, and maybe he really is exploiting people fantastically well. But I'm sure, even if he is doing that, he's probably going to be a 4 or 5 BB winner, not a 7 or 8 BB winner.
They have a little crew. It's like Saulo and Seta Benny, and one of them defected and joined us. I won't say his name. I don't know if he wants to keep it secret or not. But
I think I've already said his name, haven't I?
Suseta? No, it wasn't Seta.
No, the other one who defected.
Yeah, whatever. And it's amazing to ask him about all this population analysis stuff, because I obviously have these thoughts that I think that people do this or people do that, and he has that all on the tip of his tongue. He doesn't need to run a report to know if this line's overfolded or if that line's under bluffed or whatever. And it's I think there is something to it, but I think it's you tailor your game. He played a lot of 200 zoom, a lot of 200 zoom. And I think he basically tailored his game to exactly exploit that population. So then if you want to play 500 or if you want to play 1K or if you want to play higher,
you create that ceiling.
It's going to work until it doesn't work, right? It's not a super sustainable thing, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, also is what's a good habit there? Yeah, I know what you're saying. You're saying what's a good habit there can be a bad habit somewhere else, and
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to see what he's doing. It's just
everywhere all the time.
If somebody is exploiting you a lot, you just have to study that player. And if he's making a really big deal of exploiting, I've seen the guy brag on streams that he's a massive winner, in the chat, and I'm just you're just putting a target on your back, pal. If you're admitting you're an exploitative player, it doesn't take a massive sample before people can just node lock you and then re-exploit, because just by its nature, it means that you are exploitable yourself. So good for him. I won't play him enough, so it doesn't bother me. I will play hands against him. I'll try and play solidly and whatever. But him and I are not even rivals, because we don't play the same games. So It doesn't matter to me. But it's just funny. I always find this is another reason why I find bragging just pathetic. I just think it's you're just putting a target on your back. Always been a proponent of getting it quietly done. Just win your money.
GIQ, right? That was like a UK crew saying for a while, is it not? Get it quietly, GIQ.
Who said that?
I think it was Merman and these guys. I don't know any of these guys, right? But I was
never part of that, man. I only in the last. So I imagine if Mormon said that, then maybe Grafton was in that group, and I've only met Grafton the last couple of years. So I've never really got to know. I mean, I met Chris once, Mormon, because they had an 888 thing in London, and I met up with Tonka. and Mormon was there, and so was Ludo. But yeah, I don't know those guys. So like maybe they did say that, and I'm a massive admirer of that attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you put a target on your back? Just it doesn't seem to make sense. It just seems to hurt your own win rate. I don't know. That's what the cash game. That's why the cash game guys do so well. I've always admired the cash game guys. I've always thought that was really like a cool thing. And even though like I've always because when I met Ben and when I met Stevie and then I later met Frank, like you guys were I think Frank made SNE the year before me, and so did Stevie. But I always felt like when the sit and go guys made Super Never Elite, the professionalism required in sit and goes was way higher because the edges were so small. And I remember it being at Dusk Till Dawn, playing a live Timby, and Frank and Stevie went and played for roulette for about an hour and a half, and they were just absolutely buzzing. And I was like, I just don't get it. How are these guys so rich? But yeah, it was kind of eye-opening, I think. But at the same time, like they were just significantly better poker players than me. So whatever professionalism I had in the line of work I had, like they were obviously just making up for it and more with their ability. And I know that Frank until recently had me as just a washed up Timby reg before we started grinding a lot of hands together on fast forward. So whatever. But I think it was interesting. But like now I just think like across the board professionalism seems to be just the absolute key mantra. Like I think there's a mutual respect between every format. I don't think cash players necessarily think that tournament players are terrible anymore, because tournament players are jacks of all trades. They're so good at so many different stack depths. And I also think that a lot of cash tournament players wouldn't dare sit 500 Zoom because they're like, oh god, no anti-deep stack all the time. It's a completely different game, which is true.
Some guys get in there.
They do. They do.
Yeah,
they do. You see them occasionally, but not often. And when they do, like you can see the addiction to like protection, which isn't necessary in a lot of. I mean, protection is obviously a thing, like, but there is more of a swaying towards protection compared to how much there should be when it's just like the hand values are so different at high SPRs. And when you're just playing 20 BB, protection is just such an enormous thing.
Right.
You have to do some ridiculous shoving with like bottom pair undercard kicker because you unblock every single bluff of button range and blah blah blah. Have you ever messed around with DTO?
Yes. G was playing a lot of DTO, and like a few hands or something.
It's just the biggest mind-blowing experience.
I mean, I do think that like I obviously have a lot of respect for all the tourney players and stuff, but like trying to like drill exact GTO versus a population who are maybe playing quite a lot different, I'm not sure like how valuable it would be really, but I could definitely be wrong about that.
As it becomes more widespread, it becomes more valuable. You
think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm part of. So I have DTO. I got it a while ago. It's a one-off. I think it's a yearly payment. I'm just part of the. I got a high roller package, which sounds better than it is. It's just the most expensive subscription. It's not like a big deal, but like you're put into the Discord channel for those particular people, and there's like, let's see how many people there are in it. Excuse me while I find it out. How do I find that out? Remember this.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not super important.
But yeah, I would guess there's like 60 to 70 players just in that. And then you've got the general thing. And there's 200, 300 players in there. So like, there's a lot of people using it. And you've got to imagine that some screenshots are being shared, some sims are being run on it. That kind of thing has a natural butterfly effect. So I think it's going to fast forward how tournaments are played. I think tournaments, as unfun, they're going to get less fun. Yeah.
Well, listen, man, it's been great to catch up with you and speak to you and stuff. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Welcome. Get better soon, man.
Yeah, I'm all right, man. I'm hanging in there. But yeah, good to speak to you. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. And take care.
See you later, man.
Wrap
Bye-bye.
up there. Bye for now.
See ya. Bye.